It's hard to see The Karate Kid as an incomplete movie. The 1984 classic gives someone a full and satisfying story about Daniel and Mr. Miyagi. We get to watch this teenager really come into his own through his training, but also through the life lessons that his old neighbor imparts upon him. He ends up winning both the tournament, but also the respect of those who were his tormentors. There doesn't seem to be anything left to learn. The two sequels certainly don't add much in way of story to the original, and neither did the remake. So why is YouTube Red making a new series about what happens when Daniel and Johnny get older? Well, the logical conclusion is that the story isn't over. There are still loose ends left untied, themes yet to be explored. The original leaves the audience with questions unanswered, and it all stems from the famous crane kick. Everybody who has watched The Karate Kid probably had a moment where they thought that Daniel should probably lose the tournament. The story beats are all there. Mr. Miyagi is teaching Daniel that it's not about winning, but about respect. The Cobra Kai are consumed with winning, but Mr. Miyagi is more concerned with giving Daniel the confidence to face his fears. Also, Johnny has clearly been training for a lot longer than Daniel. However, we all know that in the end, Daniel wins. He pulls out a crane kick, which ties in nicely with the film's theme about balance, at least in the physical sense. But it's this kick that shows us as an audience what's left to learn. You see, Daniel LaRusso uses the crane kick, but it's how he delivers the move that's significant. Daniel delivers the strike first and hard. He follows the Cobra Kai motto. However, Daniel's not really following the Cobra Kai motto, he's following his own nature. In The Karate Kid, Daniel wasn't learning how to fight. He's not even learning how to defend. Daniel was learning how to become a gentler person. Daniel is a tough kid. He may not seem it, but he is. He wants to solve most of his problems with his fist. He can take a punch, and he's clearly used to taking care of himself at home. His anger is often bubbling up to the surface, and the next moment he's lashing out. That's what Mr. Miyagi is trying to direct Daniel away from. Bonsai grooming, household chores, and repetitive movements are not necessarily just karate training methods, but are also techniques for relaxation. A way to move your mind from anger to a different kind of focus. Daniel's reflex is to strike first and hard at any problem he faces, to survive at all cost. He doesn't like to exercise patience, preferring to handle it up front. But Mr. Miyagi is showing Daniel to be disciplined and patient, to handle situations calmly and with restraint to get a better result. So why does Daniel win the tournament with something so against the principles Mr. Miyagi was teaching him? Well, that leads into what Johnny was learning at the same time. Johnny Lawrence seems like a cool kid and a bully who's always ready to fight someone at a moment's notice. However, looking a little closer, it's clear that Johnny is a lot more trepidatious than he might first appear. When he's introduced, Johnny doesn't immediately resort to physical intimidation, but seems to want to really talk to Allie. Sure, he doesn't handle it well when she doesn't want to talk to him, but he certainly isn't the violent and unreasonable hothead we are led to think he is. It seems obvious that Johnny is a kid whose nature is soft, but who has been taught to be aggressive. Kreese has instilled the motto of Cobra Kai into Johnny, but Johnny actually has a more Miyagi nature of restraint. Johnny loses because he doesn't back up. If you look in the footage, there's a moment where Johnny hesitates, but decides to aggressively step forward. If Johnny had stepped back, the crane kick would honestly have been rendered useless, and Johnny probably would have won. His aggressive step forward guarantees his loss. The lesson both boys were learning in The Karate Kid was important because they were trying to equalize their nature and their nurture. However, it's easy to see how the boys as children would not be able to understand that lesson and instead would overcorrect. Daniel didn't believe he needed his aggressive nature to win because the move was still Mr. Miyagi's, so he lets go of his natural aggression, but also lets go of that survival mechanism that aids him. Johnny believes he wasn't aggressive enough to win, so he embraces the tough survival mentality without the mercy needed to temper it. Now, as older men, they need to learn that neither of correction is actual balance that Mr. Miyagi was talking about, but merely a full turnaround. They need both the yin and the yang for life. And according to Eastern philosophy, each yin and yang contains pieces of the other for balance. That's where Cobra Kai comes in. I could not recommend this series highly enough. It's a great continuation from the original. After having seen the whole first season, it's clear that both Johnny and Daniel still have a lot to learn, but I'm excited to see where the cast and crew are taking the story. Personally, I'm hoping Daniel and Johnny will open a dojo together that will combine their teaching and benefit more kids in the process. The Karate Kid is still an incomplete story, but it's nice to see the crew has taken it upon themselves to give the story some closure.
Lesson for whole life. Whole life.